Peace. Good morning. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of the Foul Playland. As always, I am Certified Player of Brooklyn, coming at you with this sort of emergency report regarding the ceasefire in Israel, Iran, which Trump had brokered. If you guys don't know, these two nations for the last 12 days are or had been battling by way of sending missile strikes at each other. Over the or yesterday, a ceasefire was announced by the Trump administration. There's now reports that either Iran or Israel have now broken that ceasefire agreement. This morning, Trump put out a brief press briefing, and I had seen that Trump had said the F word to reporters on Twitter, but I didn't hear the clip yet. Right up until I made this video, and the context of why Trump said the F word in relation to this ceasefire was interesting. Basically, Trump said that Israel doesn't know what the F they're doing. He said both of them doesn't know what the F they're doing, but he especially honed in on the fact that Israel, at that current juncture, when Trump made the press statement this morning, had jets or like that were getting ready to strike Iran either right then and there or today, maybe even, which would be a egregious violation to the ceasefire. But immediately after the ceasefire was announced, there had been a statement from the Ayatollah saying that Trump was a gambler and that the Iran or the nation of Iran is not one which surrenders. Give me 1 second, people. Again, Iran yesterday, last night, gave emphasis on the fact that they're not a nation that um, surrenders, which I found a little bit anti-peace on the heels of the announcement of a ceasefire, which, I mean, I would have expected some sort of posturing from both nations in spite. But nevertheless, Iran made the statement last night about Trump being a gambler and the fact that they're a nation that doesn't give up or surrender that easy, something to that effect. And then you also have this morning, according to Trump, there was supposed to be a 12-hour window before the two nations would engage in the ceasefire or put down their weapons outright. So I guess they put it to a certain date in addition to putting it at a certain time. So for instance, if the ceasefire was announced last night at 1 a.m., then it was meant to go effect 12 hours from that point. So for instance, at 1 p.m. the following day, 12 hours later. According to Trump, he says that the first hour of that, I guess he was anticipating in that 12-hour window for there to be a little bit of a tampering down, or where people would retreat back to their respective nations, and there wasn't any of that. What happened, according to Trump, was that Israel launched a bunch of missiles on the first hour of that 12-hour window leading into the ceasefire, like so right before the ceasefire. And I'm not sure as far as to what the back and forth was between those two countries since then. But right now, as of this current juncture, and I followed the stocks, has been a little bit of a smack in the market. One either right after the market opened, to basically the fact that we wouldn't have a war, and now it's sort of acting as if we will have a war to a degree. But it was very telling that President Trump had said that both of these countries don't know what the F they're doing. Because, I mean, it's not presidential for a president to curse, but Trump has slipped out a few curses, especially the F bomb at certain really pivotal points. I don't know if you guys remember, he had an interview with damn, what's his name? There was a conservative radio host that had passed away recently, and Trump had a interview with him prior to him leaving office in 2020, and he actually was referring to Iran, and he said that Iran better not f around. Um, I guess that he knew of some plot that they were up to, and then he told them not to f around or not to screw around. And this was as Trump was leaving the presidency, in his first incarnation. And now this morning, referring to both nations, he's basically saying that they don't know what the f they're doing. And this is I think it was warranted in the sense that this is a very tumultuous situation. I mean, and the fact that both nations are kind of working around Trump in a sense, particularly one of those nations, and seemingly stoking the fires of war. It was sort of fitting that Trump came out with the, I guess, F-bomb statement regarding both of these nations. So last night when the ceasefire was announced, I actually came on here and said that I had no peace, Mark Nash. How you doing, man? That I had no expectation that, or if I were a betting man, that I didn't think that the ceasefire would hold up. I think one of the nations would violate the ceasefire, and as of this morning, it seems as though both nations are looking to continue this war. So do with that what you will. I don't like the prospect of any of this stuff. I mean, as of today, because of the nuclear strikes that were conducted on the nuclear facilities in Iran, one of those countries won't be able to produce a nuclear bomb in the near future. I mean, supposedly their enrichment capacity, or their enriched uranium, which they need to make a nuclear weapon, was at 90% capacity towards having the ability or the capabilities to make a nuclear weapon, and that they wanted to continue into that pursuit. Now, some people would say, this country has the ability to make a weapon. That country has an ability to have a weapon. Why can't Iran have one? And that's a really stupid concept, because that would be in essence of me selling drugs in Brooklyn, and I'm like the biggest drug dealer in my neighborhood, and then my rivals begin to say, well, someday we're going to have enough money to assemble a rifle to contend against you guys specifically, like my people specifically. And they start slowly putting together that rifle, bit by bit by bit by bit. And let's say if me, as a with it drug dealer or whatever, would have 4 rifles. Like, if somebody else were to say, well, why can't they have a rifle when you guys have rifles? That would be a ridiculous argument, And again, like, Iran's policy politically is one of which it's acceptable as a political policy for the leaders of that nation to be saying death to America, regardless of why they say it. It's the fact that they don't have a nuclear weapon or the capability of making a nuclear weapon because of the B-2 strikes that were conducted by the U.S., the world is a little bit safer. And again, like after, I know a lot, in many ways, they have to save face, Iran, and the missile strikes towards that Qatari U.S. military base yesterday were kind of in that vein, like to try to save face. Like, you guys struck at us and we'll strike at you. Trump put a response out and said that that missile strike towards the U.S. base in Qatar was meant to be shot down or not to hit his targets. And right after that, he announced that the two nations were entering into a ceasefire. So basically, I saw your little move that Iran did towards the U.S. It wasn't a big deal, but in spite of that, both of you guys, I want both these countries to go into a ceasefire. Like, it didn't seem as if the president was beefing with Iran for sending a strike in the direction of the United States. And then now, as far as day two of the supposed ceasefire, you have both countries that seem more than with it. Now, if those countries were re-engaging into a battle and are determined to not follow by the ceasefire, which they probably more likely than not are not going to honor the ceasefire, would it help me sleep better that Iran has a nuclear weapon just because Israel has a nuclear weapon and America has nuclear weapons? Like, nah, I'm American. I mean, through and through. If a country, Iran in this case, is made it their political policy to say debt to this country, then I'm not gonna lose sleep because their nuclear facilities are no more. That's just me personally, though. Michael Johnson says never was a ceasefire. LMAO. Yeah, as of this morning, like I said, I don't know if you heard about what happened last night, but there was a 12-hour, like I reported earlier, there was a 12-hour window leading into the ceasefire, and that Israel had launched off in hour one, basically, a bunch of missiles, like 12 hours, a couple hours before the ceasefire was supposed to go in place. And I think Iran also retaliated due to those missile launches. Trump actually said in a Truth Social post too. That's another thing I forgot, that Israel had jets on the way to Iran, like ready to strike, basically, and that they should get the F back. Like, basically, don't do it. Like, what the hell are y'all doing? So right now, what we're seeing is sort of Trump, in essence, trying to play the peacemaker, and this is like something that is not received well within the Trump's base, the conservative base. Some conservatives are pro, giving Israel every dollar that the U.S. could spare, and a lot of other people in the conservative base don't want Trump to be involved in Israel at all. I mean, with Iran, against Iran, or in this conflict at all. And I like the whole fact that there's a little bit of difference of thought within the base. Like, I like the fact that people are saying, like, yo, Trump, chill when it comes to this. Like, like, because I don't see that in the other side of the aisle. Like, the other side of the aisle strictly votes one way. They may put out a statement here and there, but when it comes to voting on things and putting things in order, they're usually one way. In terms of like Israel per se, like, there's a lot of made seem as if liberals don't arm them. Liberals arm Israel in this country just as much as conservatives do. Michael Johnson wrote, "Nah, Iran never made one." As far as the ceasefire, I don't know. I can't say but Trump announced that they both had entered a ceasefire. Iran or Israel, I don't think responded after the fact and said, oh, thank God we reached a ceasefire. I don't think neither nation after the fact, or after Trump announced that there was a ceasefire, um, said that there was a ceasefire, or maybe I missed it. But Trump said that there was a ceasefire, and America is the more powerful nation. Um, the At the end of the day, what's gonna be with this whole conflict? I mean, I think at this stage, if the better policy for America would be, and I see some signs of that by Trump's statement this morning, because Trump was very hard on Israel. Again, too, as far as American politicians, there's no harder politician on Israel than Trump. A lot of Democrats will give lip service to being hard on Israel, but then will enable them some way or another. Historically, even in his first term, Trump was actually one of the people that put Israel on blast. It's just that if it's not reported in the mainstream media, most people ain't gonna catch it, and most people are mentally deficient. But this morning, you had more of the same, like where Trump's kind of like telling Israel, like, "What the hell are you doing?" He actually used the F word again, like, "What the F?" Like they don't know what the F they're doing, in referring to both nations. But it seemed as though he was kind of like leaning into being critical of Israel this morning. So I mean, it gives me some hope, and I think that the best expectation for America in this conflict would be that if both these nations want to continue to fight with each other, let them, without us arming them, being that one of the countries we do arm, but they're not listening to Trump's advice, as according to what he said, and that Israel was getting ready to launch off more strikes and actually had planes that were entering into conduct some strikes on Iran as of this morning. So if that's the policy of Israel, I think the more sane approach in this would be, we're not going to continue to arm this, or we're not going to continue to give you weaponry to go against Iran. We already took out the biggest threat that Iran had to offer to Israel or to the world in their nuclear deterrence by the actions that we took against their nuclear facilities. Iran doesn't have nuclear capabilities any longer. So why should we keep supporting Israel if the nuclear threat isn't there any longer, one? And secondly, and most importantly, if you're not going to abide by a ceasefire, which I put in place, which it seems as if they didn't, one of the two nations, if not both the nations, then why should the U.S. be involved? I think like that honestly would probably be a faster way to end this conflict than to try a negotiation with either one of these countries. Both countries have radical religious lunatics that sort of help mold their public policy or their international policies. And why deal with religious lunatics on both sides? It's especially for America. Um, I think as an American, like to see an America First policy in play right now would be a good time to show that, in the sense that we're not going to keep throwing money into this conflict. If you guys want to battle, or if you guys want to continue your war fighting, then do it on your own dime and without the U.S. support. I think that would be the ideal scenario. Iran not having nuclear capabilities anymore may be debatable. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, because I've heard reports that they moved some of that stuff prior to, and that they were alerted to the fact that they were those facilities were going to be struck. I think the New York Post, I didn't read the clip. I just saw a little headline that Israel had actually given Iran warning of the nuclear facility being struck, that they actually have a radio transmission to that effect. I ain't listened to it and I ain't read the story. I just saw a little headline. Um, but the fact that their three nuclear facilities have been struck, their capabilities for making nuclear weapons have been largely thwarted. I mean, unless they had something in the stash that people don't know about, who knows? But it seems as though it'd be really hard to like hide a nuclear facility like that, one that America wouldn't know about. But these three have been struck in earnest. I think that their nuclear capabilities are have regressed greatly. And there were reports again too. I don't know if how true this was or not, that they had 90% enriched uranium, or that they were 90% from making a nuclear weapon, or they were 90% of the way in, and that it basically took weeks or months for them to have a nuclear weapon. Again, most of the people that I hear talking against it, it's more along the lines of, oh, well, this country could have one, why can't they have one? And again, that's like really dumb thinking. It's sort of like whataboutism, and it's stuff that I don't want to get lost in explaining at times, because it's kind of like a not smart position to be explaining. But the again, like I'm not pro, and like most people weren't for a strike of Iran's nuclear facilities. Like, if leading into the weekend when that strike happened, I think most people, even conservatives, if they would have said, "Oh, do you guys want to strike Iran's nuclear facilities tomorrow?" they would have said no. And that's logical, like nobody wants war breaking out. But I think the world at the end of the day, like, will sleep far better knowing that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. Like, most of the people aren't saying, well, they need some sort of deterrence for Iran. People would say another nation should get a deterrence, but Iran, being that there's radical religious lunatics that run Iran, people don't want to see them armed with a nuclear weapon. That's fair. It's not a whataboutism. It leads to a common denominator, which is Israel. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, but again, like, would the situation be better? Like, should Iran be just as strapped as Israel is? I think not. I certainly know not. I mean, Israel does what they do, and it's good that the world, in a sense, is kind of like taking notice on how they operate. To put it plainly, again, I live in a censorship world, which I got to navigate around these topics sort of gently. But will Iran being strapped just as much as Israel help the situation? Not at all. I mean, and the second strike against Iran was that Trump was in the process of negotiating with both them and Israel for the last 60 days. He kept telling them, like, I want to strike a deal with Iran, come to the table, come to the table, come to the table. If they ain't want to listen, in addition to the fact that they already have a strike against them, by having a policy, as far as their politicians go, saying that to America, that's two strikes. Let me see. Now, Israel could have done their own dirty work. I don't think supposedly Israel had the capability of striking that nuclear facility, like the bunker busters and or the B-2s. I'm not sure. Again, I'm not like, I wasn't cool with the strike of, or the U.S. involvement. I'll put it like that. I'm actually like as the hours pass after the strike, because now that happened over the weekend and we're now on Tuesday. At like as I had more time to think about what happened by from the U.S. to Iran, like the B-2 strike, more and more it's like I don't think it was as big of a deal. Like I think it was basically just them getting rocked in their shit and telling them to stop what they're doing. And again, no U.S. soldiers injured in the operation. Fantastic. Doesn't seem like there's a high Iranian civilian population that was killed or injured in this, especially if the reports are true that there was some sort of military radio transmission that was telling Iran that the nuclear facility was going to be struck. So maybe they had time to evacuate personnel. Who knows? But it was basically a one and done operation in terms of the U.S.'s involvement. But right now, as of this morning, again, Trump is basically trying to play the peacemaker. You know, if Iran wants to say like, nah, fuck that, Trump, like you just struck our shit, that's on Iran then. I mean, like, and if that's the case, I mean, like, I think the best scenario in any of this, in any predicament, whether Israel chooses to go ahead and fight with Iran on their own, or if Israel chooses to do nothing because the U.S. won't be involved, but the U.S. not being involved is the better scenario in both of these instances. So actually, the fact that Trump said they don't know what the F they're doing to both of these nations, it gives me more promise, like that at least he's trying to curtail the more dominant country in that battle, one, but also that he's kind of making it seem as though he's has every eye on that situation. Again, this is something that most Americans weren't used to these last 4 years. Biden was an incompetent president. Biden was being stashed from public view. Biden gave zero amount of press for the most part. I think Trump has surpassed Biden's time with the press in a couple of months of Biden's 4 years as the president. So right now, I think the best person for America in these crazy times, these crazy times were set to pop off as is. Everybody's beefing with everybody right now. Everything's highly pressurized, and I think that's the new world that we're entering into anyway. But layered onto that is the fact that these countries are going at each other, or we're going to go at each other in a sense. So, I mean, I think in a sense, I look at it as like, no matter what, Iran and Israel, at some point, we're going to go at it. And if the U.S. involvement in that is a B-2 bomber striking a nuclear facility, I'm not losing sleep over it, So, I mean, with that, I'm going to break out of here. I may go on live later today. Also, as of right now, because I had a lot of shit going on. I think today's Tuesday, yeah. Wednesday, I'm gonna have a guest on to my show, Lord willing. If not, according to Sam, if you guys please go subscribe to his channel right now. According the number 2 and the SAM Sam, he's gonna be on my show tomorrow, Lord willing. Talking about politics, geopolitics. But I likely will. I might come on later today. But if not, I'm definitely gonna be here tomorrow. We'll see. I mean, just woke up for the most part. Look what's already happening in the world. The potential of a breaking of the ceasefire, and the day just started. But with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please help me by like, share, subscribe to this channel. And I'll be back later, maybe. But if not, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.